This is my stone carving story in which I'll be accompanying you from the mountain to the museum. One of my favorite stones to carve is alabaster, which was formed around 180 million years ago in northern Colorado. The area was covered by a shallow sea, and through the years, the water dried up and left deposits of sediments that settled to the bottom of the sea. The sediments were covered up with other wind-blown deposits, hardened, and became the metamorphic stone, alabaster. The quarry that the alabaster came from was first owned and operated by my father, Lloyd Jones, then handed down to Stan Jones, my brother, of Fort Collins, Colorado. And they quarried and sold the stone through their business, Colorado Alabaster Supply. Stan recently retired, so sadly we will not be harvesting stones from the quarry any longer. I will have enough stone stockpiled in my studio in Cheyenne for the rest of my carving career, but it is a bittersweet ending of a wonderful legacy. I use a 4.5-inch angle grinder with a diamond rim blade to rough out the stone. I like to shave off a lot of the surface mud to see what lies below the surface and to see how the lines and colors will play into my plan. I will be using various stones that I have been working on at various stages to demonstrate the steps in the carving process. Using the cut and slash method is an efficient and safe way to remove stone. I draw lines on the stone to delineate where to take away material and then cut channels into the stone to the lines. Then I either chisel off the segments or cut them off with a perpendicular cut. The blade can either be used to cut a channel, cut off a segment of stone, or grind the surface. I use all of the tools simultaneously, but the majority of the initial roughing out is done with this angle grinder. I was using this stone to demonstrate the cut and slash method, but the spirit within the stone hadn't revealed itself to me, so I switched to another stone that I envisioned as a mother with a baby in a cradle board on her back, and another baby also in a cradle board leaning up against her in the front. This stone had a lot of mud to cut off before I got down to the pink that I wanted to use in my sculpture. You can see the beginning of the head and then more form and details through the weeks that it took to take away the stone that wasn't the mother and babies. When I have removed most of the stone down to the subject matter with the angle grinder, then I use rotary rasps to grind more material away. You can see on this next sculpture that the rotary rasps have various bits in them that are used for removing stone and for texturing. I was able to see that this stone's coloring was half green and half orange, so I carved the man on the green side and his lover on the orange side. I used the rotary rasps to drill into the stone between their bodies, and it was a real challenge to get the details carved out with their faces and bodies so close together. I like to use different kinds of stones, including marble, limestone, soapstone, and a variety of colors of alabaster. This green and orange stone came from a quarry in Utah. Having a variety of carving tools at hand with 6 air hoses to attach them to allows the work to progress more quickly than when I first started over 40 years ago with a small compressor and 1 tool of each kind, between which I would have to change out bits and blades to accomplish each varying task. When the rotary rasps are too big for the details I want to carve, I switch to my various air pencils. This is the tool for carving faces, jewelry, clothing, and textures. I just love to sit around and make faces. It's very gratifying to move from seeing a basic human form to recognizing a person with character and life. The air pencil allows me to carve minute details like beaded necklaces or fingernails, as well as many different facial expressions and fashion details. The various bits help accomplish the carving of many different contours and textures. I use the power tools along with my faithful air respirator in my outside studio in the spring, summer, and fall. Then, as each sculpture is finished being roughed out and ready for handwork, I move them into my indoor studio where they will sit, waiting for the next step in the process. So these sculptures you have seen so far were started last year for this year's shows. This sculpture of a mother braiding her daughter's hair is ready for smoothing with the rifflers and defining details with picks, knives, and fine files. I like to use many different textures, so some parts I sand and make smooth and eventually shiny, some I texture with the rifflers and air pencils, some I sand smooth and then texture with designs, and some I leave rough. When I sand, I use water and wet or dry sandpaper with grits in decreasing roughness from 60 to 2000. The roughest grits are used to get rid of the bruises and deep scratches which are crushed crystals on the surface of the stone, made during the carving process with the power tools. Then the subsequent grits are used to make the stone smoother and will help the finishes to attain a high gloss. When I'm sanding, I have to be careful not to sand out the details I so painstakingly carved previously. The indoor finishing stages often take as much time as the initial roughing out steps with the power tools. When I get the stone wet, I can better see the color, gloss, and what the stone will look like after the final sanding is completed. When I am finished sanding and texturing, I seal the stone with various chemical finishes, depending on the texture and the color I want. I am using this accompanying stone polishing liquid to bring out the shine on the sanded surface of the blanket in the green and orange couple, as well as antique oil finish. The antique oil finish is good for bringing out the color on textured surfaces and details where I want the color to be evident. On details that I want to be a contrasting lighter color like hair or decorative designs, I use water-based polyurethane. When I use decorative designs, I sand, seal, and polish the surfaces I want smooth, then use an engraver to draw the designs on the stone. When you sand the stone, the color of the stone manifests, and when you hit or scratch the stone, like with an engraver or a riffler, the crystals are crushed and manifest as a white or lighter color, so many different designs can enhance the general form of the sculpture. The next 4 sculptures will be on display at the Old West Museum for the 2021 Cheyenne Frontier Days show and sale. Twice the Love is the title of the mother and 2 babies in their cradle boards, whose beginnings you saw earlier in the video. The designs on their cradle boards are a combination of several cradle boards I used as models from the plateau area on which our Wyoming Shoshone used to roam. Raising children is challenging enough in this day and age, and I can only imagine how difficult having twins would have been 200 years ago. At least there was twice the love to go around. A Word of Encouragement depicts a very proud mother who is supporting her daughter as she shows off her flat basket weaving at the market. I was fortunate to have been mentored by my parents and am very proud of my own children's artistic and creative talents that I have endeavored to pass down to them. This sculpture represents all the fortunate parents who are able to pass down something they love doing to their children. The cording blanket that you saw earlier in the video is carved from Utah alabaster. I was able to see the 2 different colors in the stone and designed the piece to highlight the unique coloring. God made the colors so vibrant that I thought it would be perfectly colored for this special cording blanket. According to the Kachina House website, it was customary for a Native American man to approach his mother about the woman he loved. The female members of his family would weave a special blanket for the man to present to the woman of his fancy. This couple is having a very intimate conversation under the cording blanket. Where the Wind Blows is carved from a weathered piece of Colorado alabaster. I was intrigued by the wind and water carved stone when I saw it in the stone yard. I could see the bird shape already in the shape of the stone. Then, inspired by a photograph by Edward Curtis of a warrior named Shot in the Hand with a unique stand-up-in-the-front hairdo, I incorporated my version of this warrior on the backside of the bird's tail. I also wanted to depict the importance of the whole ecosystem, the wind and the rain, the animals, and the community.